Okay.
Or rolling.
Great.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming this morning. I'm very excited for the speaker. I think you're really going to learn a lot from him. We've already met once, and he just blew my mind just with his questions. I'm like, dang, this guy really knows what he's talking about. He's a high-end consultant for Fortune 500 companies. He worked for AOL in the past as was it a sales director?
Search, yeah.
Okay, search and sales director. This guy knows his stuff. He's got a ton of experience. I really hope you enjoy and gain as much from him that I did from our meeting. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Doug Froman.
Thanks, Chris. And hi, everybody. Really happy to be here today. And we're going to have some fun. And hopefully we're going to also come away with some real valuable tools, techniques, and targeting that you'll be able to apply tomorrow. So it's real hands-on sales. I've been doing this for about 14 years with companies like AOL, Coremetrics, BeFree, Adara, who you haven't heard of. And the sort of tagline I'd give myself is that I have opened startups in the Chicago territory. So I've always been the sales director for companies that were based elsewhere. San Mateo, New York, Boston. I've never worked for a company in Chicago. I've always been the guy in Chicago. So with that, I'll start our agenda. This is gonna be totally interactive. So we're gonna look at the beginning at an interactive role play, and we're gonna go back and forth as if we're talking to your actual clients. Then we're going to get into some targeting, because one of the things that Chris and I talked about that was essential is, if we're going to be successful, where do we spend our time? And the sort of short answer is, well, there's low-hanging fruit. And that low-hanging fruit may or may not be sweet. There may be another, target down the line, that if you have a different lens to look through or a set of criterion in terms of your sales and how you think about it and who you want to go after, you can essentially do better, do quicker, do more. And so we'll talk about targeting. Then, is anybody familiar with Shark Tank? Shark Tank, we're gonna have a little Shark Tank here where we come up with some business targeting ideas. So essentially take the targeting and put it into an actual experience where you'll be in little teams, and in this case, really little teams. And then we'll be able to sort of do some presentation for that. And then takeaways, basically, this is a small group. This is going to be more of a conversation than anything. But my goal is that you have takeaways that are real hands-on that you can apply immediately. So Chris gave you my background. I'd like to hear who you guys are. Before that, I want to tell you about my mom. We were at a meeting at Coremetrics, and we had this team building exercise, and it had to do with putting up a picture of a family member, and then the people who were in the audience, who were all of our sales team and marketing people, were supposed to try and guess who that family member, I don't know if it built the team, but that was the exercise. So long story short, before that, at lunch, we had a very, very stiff, stuffy, high-powered attorney come in and give us our mandatory lecture on sexual harassment. And it was really, really, everything about it was as if you were going to go right outside to the next room and commit sexual harassment. It was incredibly threatening and heavy. And so then she left, and then we went to the team building exercise, and a picture of my mom comes on the screen, and the guy behind me goes, "Whoa, really hot mom." And everybody looks at him, and he goes, no, I didn't mean that. So needless to say, everybody was like, dude, we just had this lecture, Keep it together. So with that in mind, let's go around and introduce and just a little bit about your name, what you do, and what I'd also would like was something kind of something you're working on that you know, like a dream or something you want to create, manifest, because that really is, in my experience, the key to successful sales is having targets, whether they're sales targets or usually they're beyond. So.
Hi, I'm Alex Kerner. I'm 20 years old. I go to.
Well, I think that this will be relevant anyway. Because if you're working on a product or you're working on a service website, sales is just woven into that. There's a book I might recommend that just came out that's getting a lot of attention by a guy named Daniel Pink, and it's called To Sell is Human. And it just takes a lot of the notions about sales and sort of pulls them and stretches them and spreads them out into, you know, more of what we already do. So just something to maybe check out. So the goal I already mentioned, tools, tactics, and targeting for greater success and satisfaction in selling. And also we are going to start with a role play right away. This is a sort of a pretty famous graphic chart, and it's something that you guys will all have a copy of this deck, but essentially what it says at the top is that social media and recommendations is the most effective means for people to have conversions. So this is a real sort of key statistic when you're talking to clients about the other kinds of ways that they advertise and the other kind of ways that they want to find clients. A lot of people might say, well, I'm on TV, but I don't know about social, you know. I'm on TV, you know. Well, great. How's your conversion rate? I don't know, you know. So, you know, if you look at something like this, ads on TV, 47%, recommendations from people I know, 92%. And this is something that I would take out as a proverbial club, you know, in a nice professional way, and begin making the contrast between the ways that your clients are already advertising, because they all are or want to, and then look at social, with the key idea being that the recommendations that people make, whether it's on a Yelp or whether it's on Facebook or whether it's something from somebody they know, a lot of times it's something that they don't know. I mean, my wife is a fiend for reviews. She'll say to me, you know, about it, we got this coffee maker, or she ordered this coffee maker from Amazon. It got great reviews. That's like her tagline. And typically the stuff is really good because she's researched it, and those recommendations from, you know, quote, disinterested third parties are very powerful. So the first thing that I'm going to look at here is pitching. And the idea is I'd like each of you to be one of your clients and come up with a typical conversation that you've had with them yesterday, you know, recently. And I'm going to be essentially you. I'm going to represent Suit Social Media. And, you know, let's just start. And the idea would be come up with what you feel like is an objection or a stall or an I'm not interested, which in many cases, if they're not interested, I'm not interested. So the idea isn't to try and convert everybody. It's basically to get a feeling for who's looking for me, who wants what I have, who is going to be about getting to a decision in a reasonable time. And so those are some of the things we're going to be you're going to hear more about. And again, just from my feeling of this crowd, you know, when I came in and the sort of concentration level and the sort of hip, I know all this stuff. I do this every day, you know. So, you know, I sort of use the Michael Jordan example where, you know, when he used to play basketball, he would talk about doing the fundamentals and having, you know, great value from that. So let's just start. Why don't you start with just a typical situation that you have had with a client or with a prospect where it's a conversation. It could be anything, and I'm going to essentially be you, and this is just going to be short and sweet, you know. But again, I want to kind of get it moving with the real situations that you're in.
Okay. Well, usually the first question they ask is, what do you do exactly? Okay.
Okay. Well, it doesn't have to be from the start,
Okay.
but certainly you could pitch me on that.
You want me to pitch you right now?
Well, I could pitch you.
Okay.
I mean, because I'm actually in your place. What I would say is that we create incredibly effective social media campaigns. Our specialty is video. Our specialty is storytelling. Now, are you currently doing any advertising of any kind?
Some print, and we have somebody in-house working on our social media for us.
Uh-huh. Great. And how is that working for you?
I'd say it's going pretty well right now.
Okay. And does that person, are they savvy with video?
I don't think so, or I'm not too sure.
Okay. No, I understand. A lot of times people don't have their own equipment, or they've come from a social media background, but they don't necessarily have the video component, which we find is incredibly effective. The statistic, and I'm not going to, when I don't have a statistic, I'll just tell you I don't particularly have it, but you guys should have it. The statistic between seeing a video in a Facebook or a LinkedIn post in terms of conversion, which is what we're most interested in. You know, a lot of times people are saying, "Oh, I got so many hits," and it's like, that's really great, you know. But what we're interested in is building really a loyalty program, building a repeat base of customers. So one of the things that we might be able to do, so my point being that with video, the conversions are much better. One of the things that we might do is, if you'd like, I could talk to your social media director, and we could see about integrating some video into your business model.
Sounds fantastic.
Okay, great. Okay, so that's an example of, you know, just the interaction and where one might go with that, because typically somebody might feel like, oh, well, they have a social guy. It's like, well, does he do what we do? You know, I also could have gone down the line of storytelling, like you know, video was an obvious thing because I know from Chris that that's a strength, but storytelling is a strength as well. And so then I would be thinking about how could I essentially create a gap, which is what I did there, between the capability that you have, which is great, totally into it, and what we do. So what we could be is an adjunct to your guy. We're not trying to replace him. We want to work with him. We can be an extension. And I think that's something that in a lot of, when you were talking about getting other clients, you know, social has become pretty mainstream. So, you know, in some cases, if you get somebody who says, oh, I don't have anything about social media, that might be a real slow account to convert, you know, whereas a lot of people are going to have it. That's not a no. That's like, okay, that's an opportunity for questions, and good selling equals good questions. You have interns? Well, give me an example. What kind of what's sort of the current campaign that you're working on? Okay. And have you been tracking conversions?
No, we have not.
Okay, so that's one thing, and I know this is a note. I'm going to go in and out of, you know, my personality. To be able to note that analytics is something probably that you don't have as much of as you are going to want to have and get more of, because that's something that most people don't have, and that as a specialist social media company you guys could have and should have, so that you can basically say, well, that's terrific, and it sounds like you're, would you say you're relatively new to the social media in terms of your business?
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, that's great. So one of the things that we can provide, because we've done X number of campaigns, again, I don't have the statistic, but we've done, you know, 50 campaigns across a lot of kinds of businesses. And as a result, we've learned a whole lot about what people respond to on social media. So what we could come in and do is potentially come in for a day and do a consulting session with your intern and give them not only set up some analytics, but give them some enhanced targets, some sophisticated places to go, because while likes and things on Twitter are nice to have, you really want to be able to get past that as quickly as you can to being able to measure conversions, be able to find out what's working, what people are responding, and start building real serious customer loyalty programs. Okay. So ROI is what I was getting at earlier, and being able to talk about analytics and being able to talk about video. I am not as versed in that because we had an initial discussion, but I'm going to wing it anyway and talk about the idea of what kind of business do you have?
I have a restaurant.
Okay, great. So restaurants are actually a sweet spot of ours. We've done a bunch of restaurants, and one of the things that we do, similar to are you familiar with OpenTable? Okay, restaurants.com. One of the things that they do is they have an online coupon. So what we're able to do in our campaigns is embed coupons into the campaign so that people are going to be motivated to use those campaigns at your restaurant specifically. And that way you're going to know that the dollar, let's say you spent $1 with Suit Social Media and you're going to get 4x from that, it's going to come from that embedded coupon. And we can do that online, we can do that offline in a magazine. If that's the way the magazine works, we can have them print it for us. So that's one of the ways that we could do it, and we could certainly discuss some others.
So,
Okay. Well, that's a great question. What kind of business do you have?
gym.
A gym. So the idea is that you're basically billing by the hour, right?
Right.
Right. So it would seem to me that most of the time that your best use of your time would be having new clients and working out with them, because they're going to pay you. So that would be the first thing. The second thing would be just like your expertise is in health and fitness, our expertise is in telling stories, creating compelling social media campaigns, and getting people new customers. So really it's a matter of, now obviously the idea is, the reason for that is that there are also things that we're going to know that, to be honest, you don't know at the moment because we specialize in this. So I'm not saying you couldn't learn those things over time, but all of the time that it takes to learn those things and all of the time that it takes to apply those things and all of the trial and error that you've used to try things that didn't work, which by the way costs you money because it's opportunity lost from when you could be in the gym with clients, we already know all that stuff. We're ready to do it now. And we can give you some really good referrals and testimonials from other people who have gyms that we've worked with that we built their businesses fast. So while it is an investment, it's an investment that I think makes a lot of sense, and it's something that you basically could control. You're not going to be spending thousands, before you see results. And we're set up in such a way where we can show you the results of the campaigns probably in the first month. So, okay. So again, that's winging it. Those are some, so what about a little feedback in terms of the kind of stuff that I'm talking about and the kind of solutions? Are these the kind of conversations that you're already having with the prospects that you're talking to?
Most of the time they're like, we already have somebody, so I'm kind of like trying to weave in and out. But
Right. Well, there I think the extension is the idea. And it could be in the two forms. It could be in the form of things that they don't do. So video would seem to be the key to that. The second thing would be, ROI. So do you have some way of tracking, the results and making sure that the person that you have, is as good as they could be? And then I would also subtly imply the idea that you have somebody, and that's great, but we have a team. We have a bunch of people who are really experienced, and we have a team, and we're going to be able to get you more results faster than just with your guy or your gal. And so basically, and one of the things that you might consider as a tactic is the idea of coming in for a half a day. You know, let us spend a half a day, you know, come in for, you know, whatever the dollar amount is. And, you know, and there's no free consulting, by the way, in this framework, because you're going to come in and there's a good chance that they might make you obsolete. In other words, your consulting and what you give them might be good enough for them to get results and do analytics and do video, not necessarily do video if they're not, but the point being, you might talk yourself out of a job, so you need to get paid for that. The other thing, so it's basically, you know, my suggestion, and again, this is something, Chris, that, you know, we could spend more time on once I understand the business better than from just our conversation, which was good, but I didn't understand all the dimensions. A consulting or an extension, I think, would be key to that, and some of the things that we're going to get to. Now, do people need a break? Have you guys been at it for a while? Should we just keep going?
You guys cool with continuing?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, these people like totally don't get stuff done. I'm like, let's find the people in the company who totally don't ever get anything done, and we'll use them. Okay, so I think the thing now that I want to talk about, and this is going to build up to the Shark Tank, is targeting. So let's talk about the kinds of clients that you currently have, and then possibly what kind of clients could you have. So let's start with Chris. And what makes restaurants hot? And so what businesses would you say, and how have they been on the sales cycle? Meaning, how willing have they been to sign up?
The sales cycle is ridiculously long. It's obstacle.
Okay. So one of the things that I think that you need to get is some comparisons. And to be able to get a price tag on some of the other things that they're doing, you know, for their business, you know, to advertise. So those things would be newspaper, those things would be magazines, those things would be TV in some cases. And again, I'm not just talking about restaurants, you know, this is going to apply, but let's just use restaurants as an idea. So the idea is we're going to look for some price comparisons for, you know, to price compare for what they want to do, because they're probably spending more money on an online media campaign than they're going to spend with you. And the money they spend with you is probably more than you're making today. So in other words, an online media campaign, I mean, this is something that I know a lot about, and people spend a lot for search. They spend a lot for display ads online, and they spend a lot for print. Now, the first two they can track, and the third one they can't track. And let's forget about TV for these kinds of clients. But there are restaurants that do, you know, but mainly, let's just forget about TV because TV is a little bit ridiculous, because what I want is a closer comparison, so that you can basically talk intelligently about saying, are you doing any pay-per-click advertising? So that would be the first one, and that would be search, and all of them are doing it, by the way. So PPC is search, is Google. And Google, are we familiar with Google and how no, I don't mean the company, I mean their advertising model. Are we familiar with that?
I am.
Do we?
Search optimization and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna give a 15-second analysis of what Google does and what all these people are doing. I'll try and keep it to 15 seconds, and we can track it. It might go to 20 seconds. There's two kinds of advertising on Google: paid and natural. Paid is at the top and on the side, called the right rail. That's an auction. Google invented two things. They invented search, and they invented their auction, which is their business model. And the reason they're such a powerful company is really because of their auction model, as well as because of their search. So giving them credit on both parts. everybody talks about the search, nobody talks about the auction model. The auction model is the most vicious, competitive business model that's ever been invented. It basically gives you a limited amount of space. This will be more than 15 seconds, but it'll be less than 2 minutes. It gives you a limited amount of space that you can only be on if you outbid the other person, and it's done on pennies, and it's done in seconds, and it's done all day, 24/7. So basically what happens is, if Bob's Restaurant needs to pay $1 for the word food, then every time the fish place, it's a cool hot fish place that I had read about, Sutpin or something, it's on Superior. Anyway, the point is they're doing PPC advertising. I know it. If they're not, I mean, you know, you guys should call them and get into search. But the point is, everybody's doing it, and they're buying keywords like Chicago restaurant, et cetera, and they're finding out from Google which words are being bought, and then they're bidding on those words. So my point here, and the reason for describing that, is to say they're all doing this PPC advertising, and they're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on it because they have to be competitive. What you're saying to them is, you know, so the question would be, are you doing search? I would ask that of every client. Are you doing search with Google? You know, and the answer will be yes. If the answer is no, that will be interesting, because it's basically like, well, a social media campaign costs a lot less, and you're able to get a loyalty audience, which you don't necessarily get on search, because people are bidding all the time on different keywords. So the idea is, if they are bidding on search, which they likely are, or they're doing content management where they're trying to get on the natural part of the listings, which are what's in the middle, you can basically say, I have a way for you to do, hi, come on in.
Hi.
Come on in, take a seat. So I have a way for you to essentially do what you're doing on search and find new customers, and that's through social media. And it's really something you should give a try. So I think what I'm saying here is, you want to find comparisons to what they're already doing, because in many cases, if they're doing search or what's called display, which are the little boxes that say eat at Joe's, you can undercut them and offer very similar benefits, including video. So, hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So now, I think I wanted to kind of stimulate the discussion towards who else could we be going after? In other words, what kinds of clients are out there that make sense? Restaurants, you know, are a certain kind of a business. What other kind of businesses, you know, are there? You know, I had a couple of thoughts, but, you know, this is really your province in terms of the kinds of folks that you're going after and the kinds of folks you could go after. So the idea is, who are similar to restaurants that have a similar need? So why don't we introduce, I'm Doug.
Hi, I'm Alex.
Alex?
Yes.
Hi. Cool. So similar needs as restaurants. Okay, so again, I think the idea here is to do a little analysis and say, restaurants, you know, other walk-in businesses, other businesses that essentially need to fill their, you know, their tables or their places. So I'm gonna start hotels, and these would be probably smaller hotels. I'm gonna say local, and I'm gonna say that a lot of your low-hanging fruit and the fruit that you haven't necessarily thought about or picked yet is gonna be local businesses, because they have a need to attract. Another thing I think that people should start doing is looking at local advertising in the newspaper. See who's advertising. And basically, if somebody says, well, yeah, we're advertising in the newspaper and social, and they just don't know, my answer to that would be social media is the newspaper that the kind of people you want to attract are now reading. They don't read the newspaper anymore. They're now on social media. And you're missing a whole huge audience of people that you could be bringing to your restaurant or your hotel or your art gallery. I think art galleries would be interested in that because they also depend upon walk-in traffic. So let's get some other ideas.
I was targeting car dealerships the other day.
Okay, car dealership is perfect. They need people to come on in, and so again, one of the things that makes life easier is if people have a high ticket item, that justifies your services. Jewelry. There's a funny joke from Saturday Night Live, but I won't say it, about jewelry.
Use our imaginations.
Yeah.
You'll lose your basketball team, man.
So more ideas about that. So foot traffic and a higher end, in other words, so what is it about a restaurant or a hotel? They have seats to essentially fill, and if they don't fill them, they make no money. So basically they're spending money and they need to essentially make their costs, and social is great for both of those. What about sports teams? I mean, they obviously have social, they may not be doing video. So let me hear from you. You guys are the social experts. I'm the talking head. So ideas? So startups brings up an interesting idea that I also wanted to mention, which has to do with partnerships. So one of the ways that I mentioned to Chris that I had done business, I mentioned that company Core Metrics that we had the example with my mom. When I was at a company called Be Free, we used to team sell with them. So one of the things that I would also look to do is, you guys are over at 1871 on a social basis?
We go to events there.
Yeah. So I would suggest getting their list, which is available, of all their companies, and look at the companies that kind of are in the service side of the information business, and basically reach out to them to see what they do and whether anybody, whether there is a call for social, in any of their campaigns. The other thing would be small agencies who don't do social. So that might mean PR. Go away. PR or ad. There are a bunch of, so the idea here would be to start getting some of these lists and maybe take 10% of your time and look for partnerships. So basically, I'm calling on agencies, smaller agencies. Do you have social? No. Well, bring us into your next social deal, and they get maybe, Chris, you can figure out what they might get. You might say you can get 20% of our billings. Well, so you're still getting 80% of a job that you didn't even look for, and somebody's bringing you in, and they'll say, oh, we know these guys at Suit Social Media. All of a sudden, they might be an email company, but they don't do social. So if they think that they can sell social along with what they sell, along with their email campaign, they know they can bring you in, and it grows the deal. It makes the deal potentially larger for both of you. And you also have the capability of an email company then. When you see somebody, let's say you're talking to a restaurant, oh, are you guys doing email? No. Well, we have that capability because we partner with partnering, one of those big ing words. So now, are there people over there at 1871 that you can conceivably think of that you maybe have talked to or?
Yeah.
Well, I think that being a video provider, for companies for a fee, I mean, exchanging is nice, but getting a fee is better. And the thing is, if they don't necessarily do video, you could become, in other words, that's a specialty. It might be that it suits social media and you have your whole array of social media services, and there's a video component,
I've actually as
Not
we
not
sort
that, not that I want it to segment you into becoming just a video provider. I'm thinking of it more of as a way to get partner business. But go ahead.
right.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, that actually makes you, this is a future thought, but makes you, as a lean and mean digital marketing agency, acquirable. There are companies who don't have that, and you could, through a relationship building, get bought, And I know that you were talking about profit sharing with people and that kind of model. Obviously, that's future talk, but there are companies who don't have that capability, who need that capability, and it's just something to think of. So I think one of my social that you could be able to say, this is what we do, well, oh, we don't need that. Oh, well, and then have, kind of a menu of services that you could provide beyond just social. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do, does anybody recognize these guys? Okay, so we're going to partner into groups of actually it's going to be groups of 2. Do you mind being in this? You don't have to identify with any of these guys, honestly. But the idea is that we're going to, a room is coming at us. Cool. What we're going to do is we're going to essentially work on, and this is for points, by the way. So I know points are part of the culture, and this is a competitive thing, but it has a point value to it, right?
These guys are all neck and neck too for the champion this week.
Well, I don't mean to introduce any competition here, but what we're going to do is we could just go naturally like this and like this and like. Do you mind participating?
Actually, I have to step outside and meet with Alex for a few minutes.
Oh, okay, good. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a little more specifically and write down. Do we have some, Chris?
It's only gonna take like
Well, I don't want anybody to get cheated out of points. Do we have a pencil and paper where you could, well, you know what? You don't need pencil and paper. You can do it on computers. I just want you to be able to come up with ideas about new prospects that you haven't thought of. I know we obviously came up with some here, and you can include these because what we're going to want to do after that is one of the people on your team is going to pitch to Chris and I why that's the best partner or prospect. And the idea here is we want to create some analysis. We want to start thinking outside of the current box and basically say, who is it that needs digital marketing campaign? Who could we partner with? Who is not necessarily low-hanging fruit, but has a good budget where we could get part of their search budget? Because one of the things that you can say when people say, well, you know what, I don't have any money. We're spending all of our money on display advertising, newspaper, and search. And I think actually in your presentation that should be explicitly stated that these are the choices.
Yeah. It's one of the two.
It's really no middle ground, folks. This is going to be either one or the other.
We can make some great videos about that.
President or crackhead.
Like we have two parents that have to go bail their kid out of jail. It's like, if only we had signed up for blah 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 blah. And he was
If
4.
only we had called Suit Social,
Exactly.
Jarvis would not be facing life in prison. Okay, childcare.
We have production companies or event planners
Uh-huh.
because they do a bunch of
And a little more color on that as far as what would be the low-hanging fruit for event planners. In other words, what's the pitch?
I'm not sure.
Meaning, what are their needs
Mm-hmm.
that would draw, them to say, oh yeah, I need digital marketing.
Well, I figure they're already spending a lot of time just producing this market too.
Yeah, no, I think that one is a winner. And also, people are spending a lot of money with them.
Yeah.
One of the places that you should go, there is it's like Chicago Social. It's one of those free magazines that's in the kiosks, and it gives you the whole social calendar of all the events that are being planned. So you could basically use that as a sort of a pitch guide reference. Oh, I see you have an event coming up in July. Do you have a team assembled for that? Are you doing video? And so basically, people ahead on the calendar as opposed to behind would be the better ones to pitch. Like, this is your experience, or your party, or your event. Yeah.
Or like the theme, that doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sailing this way, and the bean is that
Right,
way.
Yeah.
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 Great. Okay, Chris, shall we huddle and?
Sure.
Okay, we'll take a huddle. Well, we thought those were great ideas, and hi, welcome. I'm Doug.
Alex, nice to meet you.
Alex. Yeah.
We're only hiring Alex this round.
Yeah, I understand. There's this side of the room. There's.
Name racism.
It's a new thing, nameism.
Yeah, that's it.
There's a thing that you. Actually, it's a good thing.
You can still get your NBA team.
Exactly.
Cool.
I'm going to use that. That's great.
Be careful. It can also get your NBA team.
Yeah, yeah. If you use that analogy, could get your NBA team taken away. Well, we thought the ideas were great. We thought that there was a little edge over here for the event planning. So there's going to be 10 points here, and there's going to be 5 points here. So I know there's a tight, there's a real tight, and no management team influence in any of that.
Clearly. Little loyalty bro.
So basically, I think that's it. I think that maybe it would be next steps and takeaways or questions that people have. Okay, so I was director of search. So I had 28 reps that basically were selling. This is all display and mobile, and AOL basically has 90 sites. And basically, I'm a startup guy. So this time I decided to kind of get on the aircraft carrier, and I jumped off pretty quick. I only stayed a year. So what I was responsible for was their search business. And so they would go to Kellogg's, and Kellogg's would have a display ad, and the rep would say to them, gee, have you thought about, how's your search campaign? Because they all had search. And we would come in and sell search and also contextual. Well, that was interesting because we had 3% market share.
Okay.
So what happens is Google, as you know, search business. So that means out of 100 people, 75 go to Google first. Secondly, they go to Bing. And thirdly, in fact, even on the AOL sites, they would go to the top of the box and type in Google and then go to Google, even though AOL had the Google product. So it was incredibly, incredibly lame. And so what I had to focus on two things. I had to focus on search agencies, which I focused on real well, which was not part of what they were even doing in their business before that. And then I also focused on building up the existing accounts. So whereas typically my thing has always been new business development, I focused on what they call being a farmer, which is account management, and also search agencies. So I just motivated my team by saying, hey, we got to sell stuff. I mean, it was very, my approach is very simple. Hey, we got to sell stuff, and what kind of ideas do you have? And those ideas actually came out of discussions because what wasn't working was the basic business development on the 3% market share product. It's like we have to go elsewhere to find our business. And I think actually there's a decent analogy here that I feel like there are accounts out there that you guys are going to get, you know, whether it's from this discussion or your discussions or just the idea of flexibility. You know, Darwin's thing was, it isn't the strongest who wins, it isn't the smartest, it's the most flexible. And I feel like this is an incredibly flexible group and company from what I've seen. And I think that the idea, just even these three ideas are great, you know, past, you know, if you look at these, you know, which also were part of the discussion, I think that coming up with new sort of ways to interact with the market, whether it's partnering, whether it's different kinds of clients, I think, you know, is going to be really good for you. Okay. Now, if you don't get your points, give him my card and I'll make sure. Well, thanks so much, and this was great. Thanks so much. And this was great.
All right, yeah, thank you so much.
Sure.